US President Donald Trump is known for his extreme statements. Before assuming office, he made bold claims that he would stop the Russia-Ukraine war as soon as he took charge. However, the reality has turned out to be quite different. Currently, negotiations are ongoing between Russia and the US, with Trump attempting to secure a better deal. Trump and Putin have spoken on the phone twice in a month, but in both calls, the US has failed to achieve any significant breakthrough. Trump had proposed a complete 30-day ceasefire to Putin, aiming for permanent peace, where attacks from land, sea and air would be completely paused. However, Vladimir Putin not only made Trump wait, but also rejected his proposal for a complete ceasefire. Because of this, Trump must now be realizing that negotiating with Russia is not as easy as he had initially thought. For now, the only success the US has had is securing Russia's commitment not to attack Ukraine's energy grids. That too on the condition that Ukraine also refrains from attacking Russia's energy infrastructure. Beyond this, Trump has been unable to extract any other concessions from Putin. Russia, on the other hand, has clearly stated its demands: a guarantee that Ukraine will not join NATO and that the Ukrainian territories occupied by Russia will not be returned. Moscow had made it clear that these issues are non-negotiable. So what has been achieved so far? Just a limited 30-day ceasefire, under which Russia and Ukraine will not strike each other's energy infrastructure. Further, discussions on a maritime ceasefire in the Black Sea are planned, but this will also be a tough negotiation for the US, as Russia considers the Black Sea historically part of its sphere of influence. So it can be said that, at this moment, Putin holds the upper hand and does not appear willing to make any concessions. Putin has also demanded that Western countries completely stop providing military support to Ukraine. Note that he is not just referring to the US support, but to all Western support. Under the Trump administration, the US has already halted military and intelligence aid to Ukraine. However, other Western nations such as the UK, France, Germany, and NATO members in Europe are still providing support. Putin wants this assistance to be completely cut off, but achieving this would be difficult for Trump, as the relationship between the US and Europe is not as strong as it once was. Clear divisions have emerged, and since Trump's return to power, fractures in the transatlantic alliance have become evident. Even though the US has distanced itself from Ukraine, European nations remain committed to supporting Kiev and continue pledging further aid. This makes it challenging for Trump to meet Putin's demands and persuade Europe to align with his approach. Currently, the US is in a tough spot, trying to balance its relationships with both Europe and Russia. Europe still firmly supports Ukraine, while Russia is pressuring the US to eliminate Western backing. Ukraine and its European allies insist that any peace deal must be fair to Ukraine. However, Putin is unwilling to give up his gains under any circumstances, making a long-term peace agreement extremely difficult. Russia is showing no signs of weakening its grip. Just hours after Trump's phone call with Putin, Russia launched brutal attacks on Ukraine using kamikaze drones and missiles, despite having just agreed to a temporary ceasefire. This clearly indicates that genuine peace remains a distant prospect. Negotiations for a full ceasefire are set to take place in Saudi Arabia, where all parties will attempt to secure their interests. Following his discussions with Putin, Trump also spoke with Ukrainian President Zelenskyy the next day. This marked their first conversation since their disastrous Oval Office meeting. Thankfully, these latest talks were productive. Zelenskyy has agreed to a temporary ceasefire, allowing energy infrastructure on both sides to remain untouched. Some see this as the first step toward broader peace negotiations. However, it largely benefits Russia. How does this ceasefire benefit Russia? Look, for the next 30 days, Ukraine, which has been targeting Russia's oil refineries, will have to halt its attacks. This is a major advantage for Russia, as its energy infrastructure will remain intact. Meanwhile, Ukraine's energy infrastructure has already been largely destroyed or is under Russian control. Even Zaporizhia, Europe's largest nuclear power plant, is currently controlled by Russia. So by refraining from attacking Ukraine's remaining energy facilities, Russia is essentially securing its own energy infrastructure. Trump is also trying to gain advantage in this deal. He has proposed that US companies manage Ukraine's power plants, believing that Russian attacks could be deterred if American firms are in control. The US is also interested in Ukraine's mineral resources. However, it remains to be seen whether Ukraine will accept Trump's offer. Zelenskyy has insisted that the US must ensure Russia upholds the ceasefire agreement, as this ceasefire is also fragile like the Israel-Hamas ceasefire. Already both sides have begun a blame game. Ukraine claims that Russian drones were seen in Ukrainian airspace even after Trump's call, while Russia alleges that Ukraine has violated the agreement by targeting equipment near a Russian pipeline. This mutual distrust highlights how unstable and short-lived this ceasefire could be. So Trump has secured only minor concessions from Russia, and even those are uncertain to last. Putin remains unyielding, and his demands are unacceptable to Ukraine. Despite this, Russia has gained significantly from the ceasefire deal. Agreeing to the ceasefire was a tactical move by Putin, a temporary pause that allows Russia to regroup, rearm, and prepare for future offensives. Putin has not abandoned his goals. He has simply adjusted his strategy. He understands the importance of energy warfare, knowing that attacks on energy infrastructure weaken the enemy's war effort, destabilize the country, cause civilian hardships, and increase political pressure. Russia has largely destroyed Ukraine's energy grid, forcing Kiev to import power from neighboring countries. Now, in exchange for sparing Ukraine's last remaining energy facilities, Russia has secured a 30-day reprieve for its oil refineries and pipelines. This is a calculated delay. During this pause, Russia will replenish its depleted weapons stockpile, reposition its troops after analyzing Ukraine's defenses, and identify and exploit Ukraine's vulnerabilities. Once the ceasefire ends, Russia will launch more precise and destructive attacks. Until then, Putin is creating the illusion of stability. This is nothing but peace before the storm. Putin's broader strategy is to weaken European support for Ukraine. If a temporary peace is in place, some European countries may hesitate to continue sending weapons, thinking that there is no urgent need. This benefits Russia, as it will be difficult to gather additional support for Ukraine at a time when the US has abandoned it. Yet Ukraine desperately needs more assistance. Before the next wave of Russian attacks, Ukraine will have to secure more weapons and air defense systems, as Russia will be ready to attack in full force as soon as the ceasefire ends. Meanwhile, information warfare will continue. Russia will try to project itself as showing restraint and manipulate the narrative in its favor, claiming that it is ready for peace and is not the aggressor. Russia is making every effort to weaken international support for Ukraine and end its own isolation. If Ukraine breaks the ceasefire deal due to Russian provocation, Russia will portray Ukraine as the aggressor. A small mistake by Ukraine could lead to huge losses. We have all seen the disaster in the Oval Office. At this time, the morale of Ukrainian troops is quite low. Ukraine has no room for mistakes. Zelenskyy will have to manage and utilize every day of this ceasefire wisely. He must prepare for the coming storm, strengthen Ukraine's energy infrastructure, and secure as much military aid as possible by urging Western countries. What may seem like de-escalation right now is not truly so. The Russian bear is taking 2 steps back, only to return with a brutal attack. If the US and Russia do not finalize a major deal, Russian aggression will resume in full force after 30 days. For now, Putin has gained the upper hand through a calculated move. Russia now aims to freeze its territorial gains. Putin prefers that leaders like Donald Trump and Narendra Modi be involved in the de-escalation process, as both are likely to avoid openly criticizing him for strategic reasons. So slowly, through Putin's master plan, Russia is justifying its invasion and is also being rewarded for it. This is good for Russia, but it will set a very dangerous precedent that powerful countries can do whatever they want. This will normalize the illegal seizure of any country's territory. Effectively, it can be seen that the deal Trump and Putin are pushing Ukraine to accept could be more appropriately called a surrender agreement rather than a peace agreement. So far, Putin has maintained his advantage in every negotiation. With the US withdrawing its support for Ukraine, Russia is now in an incredibly strong position.